Hi Internet, and welcome to Game Theory. Sorry, I couldn't resist that opening with today's subject matter. To say TCGs are repetitive in terms of game design is something of an understatement. Truth be told, I'm really tired of uttering the phrase, "It's Duel Masters," but as so many games copy Duel Masters, especially now, not just taking elements from Duel Masters, but being Duel Masters with some elements changed. I love Duel Masters, don't get me wrong, but it's tiresome. However, we've seen this before. Who was old enough to remember the Doom clone and GTA clone monikers? Back in the early 90s when all first-person shooters were called Doom clones, and the early 2000s where all open-world crime games were called GTA clones. Of course, many of these games were inspired by Doom and GTA respectively, but that's all they're doing, being inspired by these games. They change the setting or theme, tweak the mechanics, focus on parts neglected by the original work. They build from it to create something similar, yet having its own identity. The fact is that what we're talking about here really isn't a knockoff or a clone. Both of those are meant to fool a consumer into thinking it's the original product. What these games, inspired by earlier works, were doing was creating genres. Genre is a French word meaning kind or sort, used to describe works of a similar vein. Or, to put it another way, a category of works sharing design conventions. For a couple of years now, since early 2019 or so, I've applied a similar thought to TCGs, the concept of genres. The way I see things, there are three major genres of TCGs, starting with the wizard game. The wizard game is your Magic-like. You have resources to summon entities and cast spells, then use a combination of both to defeat your opponent. The genre is the granddaddy of TCGs as a whole, and starts with Magic the Gathering. Duel Masters itself is inspired by Magic, so that means anything inspired by Duel Masters is inspired by Magic, albeit indirectly. A common motif of this genre is the colour pie, again, inspired by Magic the Gathering. The game can use an avatar card, but doesn't have to. Games of this genre currently in print would be Magic the Gathering, Digimon, Dragon Ball Super, Force of Will, and Final Fantasy. Wizard games are also by far the most common genre of digital TCGs, with Hearthstone and Shadowverse in particular being prominent examples. A big issue with the genre is something I said earlier. It's kind of samey. There isn't much variance in the games. They're Magic or Duel Masters with some elements changed. However, I think the safe design might actually work to its benefit, as the games that have ventured further out, really experimented with the genre, have failed miserably. Though I also attribute some of that to designers that haven't really tried to learn from the past. Our second genre is the war game. The war game can be summed up in one phrase: board positions matter. You have a lead character or avatar, other entities support them, and the goal of the game is to defeat your opponent's lead character or avatar. Though this is more of a recent evolution. When the genre first started, the goal was to take down a certain amount of your opponent's entities. War games are by far the most diverse of the three genres. Games bear very little resemblance to each other unless they are directly based on another game. I attribute their genesis to Pokemon, though I'd say Bandai and Bushiroad have done most of the work evolving the concept. Despite Pokemon being directly inspired by Magic, it's a very different game. I think the only similarity they really share are the medium and the resource cards. Pokemon's goal is also a bit different to most other games in the genre, where the goal is to claim 6 prizes. The goal would evolve with Bandai's One Piece collectible card game, where the goal was to take down your opponent's captain or capture 6 of their comrades. The board more closely resembled later games like Vanguard or Buddy Fight. captain front and centre, comrades to their sides. From here you get games like Vice Schwartz, Vanguard, Buddy Fight, and Gate Ruler. The third and final genre is the fighting game. These TCGs seek to replicate shonen battle anime, wrestling, fighting games, or actual martial arts. You'll have your fighter of choice, then you punch, kick, hack, slash, and key blast your way to victory. The games are interesting in that theoretically they operate as if they are wizard games made up entirely of spells with native burn effects and counter spells, but I think that really sells them short. Attacks in these games feel nothing like a burn spell. Maybe that's due to the context being different, but because everything can be cancelled or only gives partial benefits, it feels unique. The genre also has a rather interesting quirk to it. The genre technically has its origins in 1995's Ultimate Combat and 1996's Highlander the card game, but Ultimate Combat was a wizard game in all but theme, while Highlander bears very little resemblance to anything coming out after. No, the genre really starts in the year 2000 with 3 games: Dragon Ball Z, WWE Raw Deal, and WCW Nitro. WCW Nitro and WWE Raw Deal are similar for a reason. I'll leave a time-stamped video explaining why in the description. But all 3 games are unified not only by their themes, but their gameplay. All 3 use life decks. All 3 use an avatar card. All 3 use attacks, blocks, and events, even if they call them different names, and all 3 use a resource in play. Dragon Ball Z was notably similar to the 2 wrestling games in terms of general design, but I believe that was purely a coincidence. They all came out the same year after all, and it has no connection to the other 2 as far as I can tell. However, this is only half the genre. Fighting games have a rather larger division in them, the other half being descended from Ryan Miller's Universal Fighting System in 2006. UFS, as it's called, is different to the prior 3 games in that it uses life points instead of a life deck, lacks a dedicated block card, and uses a radically different resource system designed to punish overextending. Well, other half of the genre might be too grand of a statement. The only game taking inspiration from UFS, which has since been rebranded Universes, is Flesh and Blood. But this is more to do with the genre being very small. These 5 games, a couple of others, and Mega Man NT Warrior from Decipher are about it. The rest of the genre can be found in LCGs. You might have noticed I avoided talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! This is because it brings up the topic of hybrids. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is descended from Magic, that's common knowledge. The game in the manga was Magic, altered enough to both be better for drama and legally its own beast. But in those changes, the game introduced aspects of war games. Field positions became a thing, with Yu-Gi-Oh's 5x2 space, and it lacks the resource system commonly associated with wizard games. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is also a very unique game, likely why we've seen games take elements from Yu-Gi-Oh! But never be fully inspired by it. From there you have games like Whitecross, which is clearly a mishmash of Vanguard and Duel Masters, another wargame hybrid that became unique in its own right. Hybridization leads to some of the more unique games, and from a reviewer's standpoint, is far more interesting. So there you have it, the 3 genres of TCGs. But hey, that's just a theory, a game theory. Thanks for watching. I'm not sorry, I had fun.